Gonna tell you everything you need to know about getting a graduate visa to move over to America, probably specifically New York. You know when like influencers be like, I got loads of questions in my DMs about this jumper, swipe up for the link. I feel like that person, but I have got 2 or 3 messages asking how I got to America, how much money I needed, blah, 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 all the kind of stuff. If you are thinking about moving to America, first of all, do it. Just do it. I would highly recommend. It was the best year ever. So much fun, so many memories. I had the best crack, made the best friends, went on amazing trips, and just the opportunities you have over there business-wise as well as travel-wise and things like that was just phenomenal. Could not recommend it anymore. So I suppose first off is why did I move to America? I was graduating. I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do as a career. I'd always gone to America on holidays. I have a lot of family over there. I didn't really spend much time in New York, so I didn't really have this like draw towards New York at all. But I was actually reading this book, which is like the cringiest thing ever, but I was reading this book. What's it called? I think it's called Just About Me. I should actually check that. Do you know that movie, Me Before You? It's really sad. Well, there's like a sequel book and it's called Still Me, and the character moves to New York. And I finished the book. I remember I turned to Peter and I was like, Peter, I just have to go. I just have to go. I read this book and I just have to go. Thank God he's so supportive, cheered me on all the way. So yes, I did move out there on my own. Whenever people ask like, how did you do that? Like that seems so scary. I just kind of wasn't thinking about it at the time and it just happened and it all worked out. So I wouldn't be afraid to go alone if none of your friends are keen. At the time my boyfriend wasn't interested in going and I was like, do you know, I'm just gonna go anyway, and I'm so glad I did. Definitely don't be afraid to do things on your own. I think that's when some of the most amazing stuff happens. Next main question to be like, what visa did I go on? So initially I went out there on the graduate visa. So it's the J1 graduate visa. It's offered to people who graduate college and you have 1 year to avail of the visa. So I graduated in October. I decided to move over there. I think it was December and I was gone by March. The J1 graduate visa it's a great opportunity because again, if you graduate, you don't really know what you're doing, or if you do know what you're doing and you want to get like work experience in it from America, it's amazing. It looks so good on your CV and it's great experience personally as well as workly. And then with visa company I went with, I actually went with Use It. As far as I know, they are now gone. Actually, will I check that as well? Let me check. Okay, liquidation due to coronavirus crisis. Okay. Yes, there's loads of visa companies. You could just do any of them. Some will be more expensive, and I think some of the more smaller run companies will be a little bit more intense and involved in helping you find an internship and kind of being on your back. Use It were very helpful for me. It kind of seems pointless talking about them because they're not even a thing anymore, but they were very helpful, but they weren't too intense. Like they weren't annoying me, but they were helpful. So basically with the graduate visa, it will give you a maximum of 14 months in America and you can work for 12 of those months and you can only work in a field that you studied. So I studied children's studies, law and soc and pol. It's really hard to get a job in the children's sector in America. Just for many reasons, they just stick it to like citizens allowed to work with children. And then law isn't the hardest to get into, but they kind of look at you funny if you haven't passed the New York bar. So I initially wanted to get a job in a law firm. Had people that I knew working in law firms and everything, but it was still so hard to get into. So I actually got a political consulting company job as an intern. So initially when I was going out there, I was like, oh my God, I'd love to work for like a really creative company, could get into some like amazing startup business, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't with the degree I had. So it is a little bit restricting, but if you did a business degree, you're flying it. You could almost get a job anywhere. Next question is, what are the requirements and what do you need for the visa? For the graduate visa, it's actually pretty straightforward. You need to have graduated, so you need to have like your degree, a picture of it, all of your grades, just to make sure you passed. You need a passport and you need a certain amount of money. So I was trying to find out how much money I needed and I can't really remember exactly. I can't find all my documents, but it was around 3,000 with Use It. So I paid Use It 3,000. They got me all the documents I needed to sign. They got me my flight. It covered everything apart from obviously apartment. A big question that is asked is, was it scary moving? I think I was so excited that it masked any fear. I just had it in my head that I was going there and it was going to be all okay. So I think ignorance was bliss. It was a big move, but at the end of the day, it's only for a year. My boyfriend ended up moving out and joining me 6 months later and doing his own graduate visa. But even if he didn't, like, it's only a year, it's not really that long. in the grand scheme of things. And even if you don't enjoy it as much as I did per se, it would add so much to you as a person. Like, it's just a year. As everyone said to me, worst come to worst, just getting the plane back home. Like, swallow your pride, getting the plane back home. You're back home in Ireland, you're safe, and it's all fine. I think if you are afraid and it is a big scary move for you, give it a go. You can always come home. Okay, next thing was the bane of my life. Apartment search. Finding the apartment was so hard because when you're moving out to New York, I know some people would like check into a hotel for 2 weeks and in the 2 weeks find an apartment. I didn't want to do that. That is so expensive. I just wanted to sort my apartment before I got there. I don't have a Facebook account, but I made a Facebook account to get a house in New York because it's the easiest way. I had a lot of different apartments in New York. My first one I got via Facebook. My second one I got on Street Easy. My third one I got on Street Easy. And then my fourth one was just mutual friends. I honestly would recommend the Facebook group. It's called Make Your Lives Easier. Make Our Lives Easier. Forgot to mention, these are also really good groups on Facebook to join as well. Request to join the group or whatever. Amazing, the resources up there. Like, jobs are offered up there. About 5 times a day an apartment would go up and it would just be someone saying, hey, I'm moving out of my room, there's availability there for the next 8 months, and then you can sign on to a new lease if you want to. So it was great if you're only out there for a year. You could try an apartment for a couple months and then move again. I was FaceTiming these people off Facebook re-apartments. So I was on the phone to some very strange people, but I was on the phone to some great people. I don't know if you guys follow Retroflame, but she is the epitome of Irish in New York. She's been living in New York for a long time, and I watched her videos when I was getting prepared to move to New York because I had no clue what to expect. But I remember her saying, whenever you see a half decent apartment in New York, just get it straight away, because if you wait 2 days, someone else will have taken it. And it's so true. Anytime I did have a FaceTime with a person and it went well, I'd be like, okay, I'll sit on this and I'll get back to you in 2 days. The room would have been gone. I was on FaceTime to this guy from New Zealand. He seemed really nice. And before the call even ended, I was like, okay, cool, I want to take the room. I transferred him over the money. He could have scammed me. It could have been a scam, but it worked out. Security deposit, first month's rent and last month's rent. So initially it's a big payment. I remember that was the most stressful part of the whole thing, because you're prepared to pay for your visa being $3,000, but all of a sudden you're paying basically $3,000 straight off the bat again for an apartment, and it could have been a scam. So thank God it wasn't. And I was in that spot for 6 months. That was in Bushwick. I would recommend Brooklyn probably if you're coming straight from Ireland, even though there's loads of Irish in Queens as well, like in Sunnyside, and then there's a huge Irish community up in Yonkers as well, which is so nice. And especially if you're feeling in any way homesick, or if you're kind of a home bird kind of thing. The only thing is it is a little bit far away from the city, so if you're not driving, it could be a long train ride. I don't know. I was happy I moved to Brooklyn. Really suited my vibe. Someone asked, what should you look for in an apartment? Air conditioning. Air conditioning. Air conditioning. Summer is so hot. It's not even just hot, it's muggy, really humid. Like, unless you are Superman, you will have a sweaty upper lip for 3 months straight. So you want air conditioning to be able to sleep through the night without having to get up and take a shower in the middle of the night. The internship search is a slog. I actually found it painful. You have 90 days to find an internship that meets all the requirements and whatnot. It took me 88 days, I think, to find an internship. So it took me way longer than I expected. Really hard to find a business that wants to take on somebody for just a year. So why would we hire you to only have you for a year and then you're being sent home to Ireland? You know, so there is a few barriers up there in that sense. It is okay, it is manageable. I actually don't know of anybody that had to go home because they couldn't find an internship. And I think everyone that I knew struggled. So even though you struggle, you'll most likely be fine. Can you go back and forth to Ireland? You can only be out of America for a maximum of 30 days. If you go past the 30 days, they won't let you back in on your graduate visa. I think a big thing as well when you move over there is settling in. That was really hard because, like, once the excitement is in and then you're in your apartment and you're just sitting in there, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God. Because of the time difference between Ireland and New York, when it came to like evening time in New York, all of my family and friends were asleep in Ireland. So those were the loneliest times for me when I first moved out there. When I moved into my first apartment, one of my roommates was Emily, who ended up being one of my best friends in New York. She was so good to me, invited me to everything she did with her friends, and then I became friends with her friends, and then I was in a group pretty much within like a month or two which was my saving grace. Getting into groups is key. So if you're in any way into sports, there's amazing sport teams out there, like there's Gaelic football. It's so nice to have a community of people straight off the bat. Like if you're in a team, you're straight away, you're in like a family. It's so nice. I'd say the same for guys as well, to always join into some kind of a team, even if you're not good. Like I don't play Gaelic football, but if I was to move to New York tomorrow, I would join the Gaelic football team. The Sligo ladies, I would be on your team, okay, if you take me. Another thing, when I first moved out there, I actually went to church as well.
I want a church girl that go to church and read your Bible.
Because similar kind of like community feeling, and I made friends there that I'm still friends with as well. I think going out and doing things that are specifically like community minded makes such a difference. Getting out as much as you can, saying yes to everything. Cannot emphasize that enough. I made a pact to myself that I'd say yes to everything for my first while in New York, and I went on nights out that were not me, but had a great time, made friends, and it's all about connections. A lot of people in New York are not from New York, so everybody is happy to make a family. Everybody wants to join more people in their group. Like, people are not cliquey in New York. It's very welcoming. Cannot get over how helpful the Irish in New York are. As soon as you tell someone, oh, I'm over from Ireland, I'm here about 2 months, oh my god, you're straight off the boat, how can I help you, have you got a job, have you got a house? People are so good. As long as you're getting out there and talking to people, then you can make the connections and people can help you. Actually, funnily enough, I found my internship because I was talking about the fact that I needed to find an internship when I was out for dinner one night. So I was out for dinner with my friend Gabby. We were in this restaurant called Bedford and we were talking to the waitress, and she kind of had an Irish accent. I was like, oh my god, I'm here, blah blah blah. Oh, you're from Ireland, what visa are you on? Oh, I'm actually just trying to find my internship at the moment. She's like, oh, what did you do? I told her what I did. She gave me the guy's email, I emailed him, I had an internship. If I didn't engage with the waitress, even though I knew she had an Irish accent, would I have found my internship? But also, as much as the Irish community is so amazing out there, I would really recommend also making friends that are not Irish. If you're moving all the way to America, you want to have somewhat of an American experience. There's no point being in Ireland 2.0. So that would be one piece of advice I would say. Also, if you are moving out there, I would really recommend you listen to the podcast Navigating New York. My friend Sophie Colgan has such a great podcast. She talks to amazing guests of people, Irish people living out in New York, successful in all their different fields, how they're getting on, how they got there. It's actually amazing and it's so helpful. I found her podcast with the immigration attorney Lorcan Shannon so interesting. I cannot get over how many different visas there are to get into America. I'm obviously talking on experience of the graduate visa, which was the main visa I was on over there. I also then did the B2 visa, which is a 6-month travel visa. But that podcast was amazing. So if you are interested in hearing other options for visas apart from a graduate visa or B2 visa, definitely listen to that podcast. Is it expensive living in New York? Yes. It is also hard to find internships that pay you. That is something to note as well. When I was going for job interviews with law firms, they were asking me like how much I'd be willing to get paid, and I was like saying proper salaries, and they were looking at me and they were kind of like, oh sweetie, because law interns don't get paid. I'm going to say something that's illegal and I wouldn't recommend it, but I have heard of people who work hospitality jobs on the side as well as unpaid internships. It is illegal though, so you didn't hear from me. With the graduate visa, because you only have that 1 year gap after graduating to avail of it, it's just go for it. Please go live your best life. And yeah, I'm so jealous.